Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? This is Harris
Hello.
Rosenzweig. I'm the Director of Accessibility for TCS Access. I'm very happy to be here with my colleague Ben Soto, presenting on this webinar, Leveraging Accessibility Tools in Windows 10. Ben and I really enjoyed taking a deep dive into the accessibility settings into Windows in light of the wealth of experience that our team has gained over the years working with our consumers with the paid versions of the assistive technology products for each of the disabilities we'll be talking about. Just wanted to go over a few of the webinar basics, the format. We'll be talking for, I'm going to say, about 50 minutes. We have a lot of material to present. I will be the moderator, and if you'll bring up your chat window, make sure that's in view so you can see what's going on. That's Alt-H if you're not familiar with that hotkey. And if you'll type the word question and then your question, that'll help us differentiate from the background stuff. We do have real-time captioning going on right now. And if you are interested in getting our PowerPoint, which contains all the screenshots, all the processes that we'll be talking about today, along with the transcript and the video audio, please email Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at tcsaccess.com. Again, that's Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at tcsaccess.com to get all of those resource materials. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ben Soto.
Hello. My name is Ben Soto. I'm a senior assistive technology specialist. I've been at TCS Access for almost 10 years now. And this webinar came about as a result of us performing assessments for users and kind of determining their training needs and providing that training, installation, the configuration, and troubleshooting of their assistive technology. And sometimes we found that some of their needs could be met with just some of the built-in Windows 10 tools. And others might require something a little bit more robust, like one of the commercial assistive technologies. But in terms of the Windows 10 built-in tools and maybe some of the Microsoft Office tools, we wanted to talk a bit about that today. So the outline for today, we're going to be looking at accessibility tools within Windows 10 for the following populations: low vision, blind, motor, neurodiversity, deaf, and hard of hearing. And this is part of a webinar series providing an in-depth look at accessibility on various fronts. And it stems from TCS's Access's experiences working with these populations for nearly 40 years. So maybe talking a little bit about Microsoft, they've made some great strides in their accessibility features just over the years, and just kind of a small heads up that if you're using a government computer with Windows 10, you might be using a older version of Windows 10 that might not have some of the features that we're looking at today. So for Microsoft, their commitment to support AT users, they've assigned Jenny Leigh Fleury as their Chief Accessibility Officer. They've created a Microsoft Disability Answer Desk at 1-800-936-5900. And they get about 150,000 inquiries a year, and they've started a partnership with Be My Eyes to expand their services. So if you're interested in about anything that they might have going on, feel free to type in Microsoft Accessibility on a search in order to find out additional information. And just a little bit about the past. In the past, the commercial assistive technology might have been like the first stop for the tools that we might use on a computer. And when our main AT stopped functioning, then we might start having to use tools available in the operating system. So it's kind of like that last resort. But things have come a long way, and sometimes those tools in the operating system might meet certain needs. so we're just kind of exploring some of that today. And maybe before talking about this low vision, these low vision settings that are on the PowerPoint slide, I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm going to be doing a live demonstration. So I am moving away from the PowerPoint, and if you are interested in the resources, certainly feel free to contact Brian. And his email address should be in the Zoom invite, as well as just kind of earlier in this recording. But I will be moving away from the PowerPoint, but the screenshots and the references and instructions will be here, as well as just kind of on the Microsoft website. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Windows search. I'm just going to press my Windows key in order to make my Windows search bar appear. And so on my screen, there should be a sort of this search option in the far bottom left corner. And for this part of the presentation, I'm not using any screen reader. I'm just kind of looking at some of the built-in Windows features first, and then I'm going to gradually move towards the narrator and then back out to some of the other features. But we have our start menu, and in the past, the Windows find might only look for files and folders, but over time we started to get this Windows search that can now search through some of the settings, and so we're going to lean on this Windows search to find some of the settings. But first, maybe just to see how my desktop looks before I start changing things, I'm going to press Windows D as in desktop. I could have also pressed Windows M for minimize to get to my desktop. And I see I have all these icons here. They're kind of small. There's about 8 rows of them. And the font is a little small too. Let's say I wanted these icons to be a little bit larger. So I might right-click on my desktop just in a blank space, and the very top option is View, and there's a large icons under that View menu. Now, if I were doing the same step by keystroke, I might have to do Control Space to make sure that whatever icon that I was on was deselected. So Control Space to deselect that icon, and then I could potentially press my applications key. That's usually to the right of the space bar. It might be like a square icon on your keyboard with some horizontal lines. If I don't have an applications key, I might have to press Shift F10 in order to simulate that right click. It's not a perfect right click, but a lot of times it brings up a very similar menu. And then I can down arrow to view, and then I can right arrow to the large icons and press enter. Now, I have my large icons, but the text beneath those icons is still that same small font. So maybe I'm trying to figure out, how do I make everything bigger? Well, let me try using my Windows search. So I can press the Windows key to get there, or I could have clicked into the start search. And I'm going to type out the word bigger. I want to make things bigger. And I have a few options here. I have, starting from the top of my search results, I have a make text size bigger, but I could down arrow a few times and go to make everything bigger. Well, that kind of sounds like what I want. I also have a few other options, such as change mouse pointer size or possibly change closed caption size. So a lot of different things relating to size or just helping me see the computer a little bit better. I'm going to try this make text size bigger first, just to see where this takes me. I'm pressing enter, and I'm brought to this settings window inside of Windows 10, where my keyboard focus is placed on the slider for make the text bigger. And by default, my slider says it's on 100%. I could try to press the right arrow many times in order to make the text a bit larger. I'm going to try pushing it to its max, which is 225%, and tab over to apply and press the space bar. And so on my screen, all of the text should be a bit larger now, or at least 225% of what it was. I'm going to try going back to my desktop. And now I'm noticing that my icons are still large, but my text is starting to get so large that it's starting to overlap a bit. So I might try to find something and explore some of these settings to kind of figure out what might best meet my needs. So I'm going back to the Windows search, typing in the word bigger. Maybe make text size bigger wasn't what I was looking for, at least not by itself. So I'm going into that make text size bigger again, and I'm sliding the text slider maybe back to 100%, because something else is kind of catching my eye near here called make everything bigger. I'm going to tab over to that make everything bigger, and I see right now it says change the size of apps and text on the main display. 125% recommended. I'm going to try expanding out that drop-down box. I'm pressing Alt down arrow. I could have also clicked on it, and I'm going to down arrow to 175% just to see what make everything bigger does. It sounds like it's both icons and font. So everything looks like it's gotten bigger. Not too much different at this point than that text size from earlier, but I'm going to go to my desktop. And I'm seeing now that my icons are a little bit larger, and my text, even though it's kind of hard to see side by side, it is a little bit larger, about 50% more than all of whatever it used to be. So that is a little bit easier for me to see. But instead of, like, say, 8 rows of icons, I only now have just 4 rows. And I have so many icons that they're all just kind of stockpiling on top of each other in the upper left corner. So at that point, I might have to just kind of clean up my desktop. But we also have, let's say, maybe I don't need the large icons this size anymore. I had the 175% size increase. So I'm going to try changing my desktop icon size. I'm right-clicking just on a blank area of the desktop, going to View, changing to medium icons. And I'm seeing here, I might only have 5 rows, but I have decent sized text for my needs and a decent sized icon that I can kind of identify. And now I have about 5 rows worth of icons instead of 4 or 8, depending on what I'm looking for. But other things that we might want to adjust font size wise. We are looking at maybe, I noticed pointer size was something I could have adjusted. So I'm going to press my Windows key to get back into that start search, type in maybe mouse. And as I start to down arrow through mouse, I have mouse settings, but I also notice change mouse pointer size. I want to do that. So I'm going to press enter. And by default, the mouse pointer size might vary from computer to computer, and just kind of the heads up, if you're trying to troubleshoot someone's computer over Zoom, these pointer settings will not show up on the other end. And Harris and I have this combination of Zoom and Teams trying to make things work. So you might notice a little bit of hiccup from those two meeting softwares sharing at the same time. But so pointer size, I could adjust my pointer size to, say, size 15. Now, at this point, my pointer size might be so large that it starts to hide things and icons, and I think it's actually being amplified by the make everything bigger. So I might have to go back to make everything bigger at some point and adjust that. But looking at pointer size, just one tab down, it says change pointer color. I could adjust to a white pointer with the black outline, black pointer with a white outline, or this auto color, where if I have a dark background, or I'm sorry, if I have a light background, I have a dark mouse. And if I start to move over a dark background, my mouse starts to get a little bit lighter. The hope is that I always have a way to see that mouse. And if I just wanted to make my own color, I can click on the color wheel and choose one of the colors accordingly. I'm going to click on this option that says pink, but visually on my screen that just kind of looks like red. And if you wanted, you could adjust the color as need be in order to adjust that pointer size. Also, while we're here, I noticed there's an option for make the cursor easier to see when typing. Well, what is the cursor? It's that blinking vertical line when you're typing in a Word document. So right now, it looks like it's just going to be this tiny little small sliver of a line, but I could potentially expand that out, just kind of sliding the slider towards the right, either with the arrow keys or with the mouse. And if I were to go into a Word document, I'm just going to briefly bring up a Word document here. Now, if I'm in a Word document, I have a blinking cursor that's a little thicker than the thin blinking line that tries to follow my text. Let's see. But I am going to slide this back to about a 2, just so it's not too wide, but also not as thin as it once was. And while I'm thinking about it, I do need to make everything bigger, probably back to about 125% just for the remainder of this webinar. Also, I might want to adjust my mouse size down a little bit. So I'll close out of that setting and look for make everything bigger and adjust that from 175% back to 125 just for the webinar. I'll close out of that. Some other settings that may help relating to vision, we have the high contrast settings. So I can type out, going to press my Windows key to get back to my search, type out the word contrast, and a few different ways to get there. But this first one, turn high contrast on or off. I'm at my turn on high contrast button, could press spacebar to activate it. And now my whole screen should change colors. So instead of the light background, my default high contrast theme happens to be a dark background, no transparencies, remove all shades of gray in between, and just kind of focus on black, white, and my links are kind of bluish, I think. I have some color filters on, so I can't actually tell what colors these are. But while I'm at high contrast, I can adjust my colors if I wanted to by tabbing over to the, like, say, text and adjusting the color wheel as needed with my arrows if I wanted to, or just typing in the actual RGB, the red, green, blue values. And if I found the color scheme that worked, I would click on apply and off I go. I'm going to turn off high contrast for now, and maybe just talk a little bit about, well, not talk about, but just show you the color filters. So off on the left side here, I see this vision category and color filters. I could either shift tab to get to there, or kind of the way that we've been doing things, I'm going to close out of my settings, go to the search, and type in the word filter. And my first option there says turn color filters on or off. So let's say I had a certain form of color blindness. I could turn on my color filters, and towards the bottom of these color filters, we can either tab to get there, or using the mouse. If I had a certain form of color blindness, I might click on one of these colorblind filters in order to kind of assist a little bit in viewing the screen. And then there's the color wheel down below, and unfortunately to me, all of them just kind of look like yellow and gray, and just like a little bit of blue, but I can't tell the difference right now. So I'm going to click on color filters and turn that off. And we'll look at maybe 2 more features related to vision or the magnification. So I do see an option for magnifier, but we'll come over to that in just a bit. And so let's say that there was a feature called, let's say that you're looking for a blue light filter. And instead of buying a physical blue light filter, which you still can do, if you wanted to reduce the amount of blue light coming from your computer screens, you could potentially look up the startup menu and maybe type in like blue light filter. And before you even finish, the first option that shows up is night light. So if I were to click on night light, and unfortunately this setting does not show through on any of my web conferencing software, but I have my night light set really high, so a lot of the colors on my screen are not visible to me, but it's also easier for me to kind of view this screen longer without hurting my eyes. But we can certainly adjust the strength of that night light and kind of adjust your blue light emission from the screen before exploring, say, a physical blue light filter that might do the job a little bit better. And I'd say the last area for this would be the magnifier. So Windows has a built-in magnifier, and if you're using a Windows 10 computer right now, you could potentially press Windows and the plus sign. And what that would do is try to magnify the whole screen. You could also get there by pressing Windows and typing in the word magnifier. And there's an application just built into my computer, Magnifier. And this has come a little bit further than it did before, where I have this little magnification bar, and I could click on the plus sign to magnify almost everything on the screen and move around with the mouse, pushing at the edges of the screen in order to view everything that's there. But let's say I wanted like smaller increments than the way it's going right now. Right now it's moving 50% at a time. I could adjust the increments using the settings option just towards the right of that magnifier bar. And I'm left clicking on that option for now, but I can also get there through the settings by ultimately looking for magnifier settings. And here I also have a few keystrokes that it's telling me about, saying Windows plus to turn on magnifier, Windows escape to turn off magnifier, and then I could also adjust with Windows minus to zoom out. But right now it says change zoom increments. My computer happens to be set to 50%. The default is 100%. But maybe I just wanted smaller increments, just 10% at a time. Now, if I do that plus sign, I'm just zooming in just a little bit instead of those larger increments. I am going to leave it at the default for now. And I'm going to leave my zoom at 100% just for the remainder of the presentation. But there's certainly a few other options that you can decide how you control that magnifier, and they'll all be kind of hiding out in the magnifier settings down below, just a few tabs away, or tab presses away. I'm going to close out of this magnifier. And next, I'll be talking about Narrator. So I'm going to do a little bit of screen sharing adjustments. So you might see like 5,000 windows for just a moment as we're adjusting so that my narrator can be echoed through on my screen sharing.
Director, accessibility, TCS access, stop screen share.
And so the hope here is that my screen is visible. And I am just kind of turning on the captions now that I've kind of taken the screen share back. And I'm going to start up Narrator. So we can start up Narrator in a variety of ways, but generally I've been doing Control, Windows, and the Enter key. And it could be the Enter key on your number pad or the Enter key on your the main keyboard. So I'm going to try pressing Control, Windows, then Enter.
Starting narrator dialogue.
And Narrator has been, we'll say, inspired by JAWS lately, and has started to kind of mirror a lot of JAWS keystrokes. So certain keystrokes you might be used to, like insert T for title, or insert up arrow to repeat the current line, or insert down arrow. Those keystrokes are still available in Narrator, although there are a few things that have been shuffled, and Narrator is also a work in progress. I'm just going to press Escape out of this heads up Narrator keyboard changes screen.
Narrator heading level 1. Well,
I'm pressing Control just to make Narrator go quiet, and then while I'm here on this Narrator window, there's a few options I can tab through, such as Quick Start to learn the basics of Narrator. I can tab over to Narrator Guide in order to go on the web and start to read their whole manual, as well as looking over at the settings where I get to adjust, say, my voice, whether I'm going to use a Braille display, or what languages I want my narrator to support. And as long as I do not Alt F4 out of this screen, my narrator will continue to run or attempt to run in the background. I'm going to press Alt Tab in order to get back to my Word document where all my text is at.
Paint demo with narrator Windows narrator language test using the JAWS surf.docs, Word, 2 of 10.
So I just Alt Tabbed over to that document, and I just listened to the title of it just to make sure I was on the correct document. And I'm not entirely sure where I'm at in this document, so I'm going to just do Control Home to make sure I'm at the top.
7.
Whoops. My num lock, I think, is...
Number lock off.
Control Home.
Cap W.
So I'm at the very top of this document, or so I presume. I'm going to try pressing Insert Up Arrow. I could also press Caps Lock Up Arrow. It's interchangeable by default with Narrator in order to repeat this current line, or even just to say the current line.
Heading level 1 Windows narrator language test using the JAWS surfs up language example.
So it read that line, the Windows narrator language test using the JAWS surfs up language example. And so I'm here just to kind of, I can use my Windows navigation keys, such as Control down arrow to go down a paragraph, Control right arrow to go one word at a time. So I'm going to press Control right arrow, and the next word it should say is narrator.
Narrator.
And if I Control right arrow one more time, it'll read the word to the right of that, which is language.
Language.
I could just down arrow, and by default, narrator will try to read that entire line. I'm actually going to stop narrator before it finishes, though.
If the synthesizer does not support the language.
So narrator started to read that line, and just kind of going a little bit further down in this document, narrator does support multiple languages, but by default, you have to install those other languages. So I'm just going to kind of skip down to a line. Oh, thanks. I'm going to skip down to a line that starts to mention French and just see how my narrator does, and hope it behaves during the live presentation.
Still to demonstrate my computers, then we write the same sentence in French.
So the next line should be in French. I'm just going to down arrow.
Mon ordinateur parle français.
And I assume that means the line above that said, my computer speaks English, or in this case, French. I'm going to down arrow one more time, or a few more times.
And then in Spanish.
Mi computadora habla español.
And so for the most part, if you have the language installed, Narrator will try to auto-adjust to it inside of a Microsoft Office product. Small heads up, if you're trying to read a language such as Chinese, the automatic detection might sometimes confuse Chinese with Japanese. I'm just going to press down arrow one time from the Chinese sample.
我的電腦說中文.
And so in this case, because I manually retagged this document as the language here is Chinese and did not leave anything to chance, my narrator spoke Chinese. But if you're ever working with someone and they just need to, like, the wrong language is playing, that could be a document language issue, needs to be changed on the back end. But just kind of wanted to give you that heads up. Now, maybe one example of Microsoft, Narrator with the browser. You can also use Microsoft Edge with Narrator in order to navigate web pages. I'm just going to bring up one website.
Microsoft Desk Bing.
So I'm pressing Control constantly, but Bing did come up on the screen. I'm going to press Alt D to get to the address bar.
The app bar.
And try to go to, say, Microsoft.com.
Address and search bar. Edit. https://www.microsoft.com.
So I'm on that Microsoft website, and I might have to tab in order to get into the website first. And once I'm in the website, I could potentially use what Narrator calls scan mode in order to simulate a very JAWS-like experience. In order to do that, I'm going to press insert space.
Scan off.
Whoops. So my scan was already on. I'm going to press insert space one more time.
Scan.
And I brought my keyboard focus into the page really quick, just but I can start to down arrow once I'm in that page and kind of go one element at a time.
Link. Read how we're responding to the COVID-19 outbreak.
As well as potentially use my quick navigation keys, such as H for headings. So I'm going to press H.
Trade and upgrade.
And as I continue to press H.
Microsoft. Official homepage. Trade and upgrade. Products for home. This is your 365.
Looks like it's moving to the next heading if it's available. There's some carousel, image carousels going off at the top that kind of interfered with my navigation. But I can also pull up a links list with insert F7.
Search hyperlinks window. Search list.
I'm pressing Control, and I can either up or down arrow through the links, as well as start to type out the name of the link. So if I were looking for, say, Xbox related stuff, I might tab over to the search list.
Scoping. Close. Search box.
And type out the word Xbox.
X.
And as I start to down arrow, I should hear some search results relating to my search criteria.
Buy Xbox games and consoles. Join Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
So very many or very similar keystrokes to JAWS, just to kind of minimize the learning curve, but different enough that you might need to look at some of the keyboard help in order to figure out what's different. I'm going to press Escape to get out of this search, this links list. And I'm going to press Insert F1 in order to get a list of keystrokes.
Search all commands window.
So I'm at this search all commands window where I could potentially search my keystrokes the same way as I did that links list, or I can just press down arrow to gradually navigate through all of the options. If I start the down arrow right now.
Search list, stop reading, Control, 1 of 102.
So stop reading, Control, 1 of 102. So I could potentially navigate the list that way. So I'm going to close out of Narrator, and the way I got into Narrator, same way to close out. I'm going to press Control, Windows, and Enter.
Exiting Narrator.
And my Narrator has closed out. Next, we'll start to look at motor and dexterity related features. Most of these are built into the operating system. Some of the features we talk about are going to be in Microsoft Office itself. But let's say clicking, just a mouse clicking. By default, a lot of these icons, you'll have to double click in order to open a file or an icon on your desktop. And maybe say you want to reduce the number of clicks you perform during a work week by half, almost half. You could potentially reduce, make a double click into a single click, and just kind of help out that finger a little bit. So I'm going to look for click settings or click. I'm going to press my Windows key to go to the Start menu. And I'm going to type out the word click. And one of the first choices says specify single or double click to open. And I could click on that option. I am going to click. And if I tab a few times, there's an option that says click items as follows: single click to open an item, point to select, or the default, double click to open an item, and then single click to select. But I generally use the keyboard anyway, so that's kind of why this is just on double click. But for mouse users, you could potentially half the number of clicks that you use or perform. We also have an option called sticky keys. I'm just going to escape out of this double click settings. And if I press my Windows key and type out, say, the word sticky, I get a few things. I get sticky notes, I get sticky keys. I'm going down arrow to the sticky keys search result, press enter. And let's say I was trying to press a keystroke like Control Alt Delete, and I didn't want to try to have to hold down all those keys at the same time. I could enable sticky keys and just have one key at a time be held down for me. So I'm going to press spacebar on this sticky key toggle. Sticky keys is on, and by default on your computers, your sticky keys can come on as well. If you were to press the shift key about 5 times, you might hear a little prompt, a little zip sound that lets you adjust. Now, to really demonstrate sticky keys, I'm going to turn on my on-screen keyboard just so that what I'm doing on my keyboard starts to show up visually on screen. So I'm shift tabbing in order to get to this use on-screen keyboard, spacebar. And if this next step doesn't work, I might have to toggle my sticky keys on and off. But right now on the screen, there is a software or on-screen keyboard. I'm going to try to press the keystroke Control Shift Escape in order to bring up my task manager. Pressing Control, and I didn't hear any type of sound or click or confirmation. So it sounds like my sticky keys might have accidentally toggled off. And at this point, I am going to click on the use sticky keys. I'm going to toggle it off and click it back on. Sticky keys hopefully is back on. And now I'm going to press Control and hope that I hear a click and that it stays on. And so I heard sort of a beep, and visually on the screen, on my on-screen keyboard, the Control key looks like it's highlighted in some color. And so if you're pressing a modifier key, such as Control, Alt, the FN key on laptops, or Shift, your sticky keys will try to hold those keys down until you press a letter with one of those modifier keys. So I'm going to press Shift, and so now I have Control and Shift held down. And in order to complete the keystroke, I'm going to press Escape. And since that's not a modifier key, it should finish the keystroke. So pressing Escape. And now I have my task manager showing up in the background. So Control Shift Escape is the default Windows keystroke to bring up your task manager. I'm going to close out of my task manager, and I'm just kind of going into the background and closing it out. And since we have our on-screen keyboard up, maybe I'll go to a Word document and and just kind of show how that on-screen keyboard interacts with the computer as just an option for someone who maybe they use the mouse but not a physical keyboard, and so they could potentially click on the letters they want to type and activate keystrokes through the mouse and on-screen keyboard. So I'm going to Alt-Tab to a Word document, which unfortunately I can't see right now because my on-screen keyboard is kind of blocking it. I could potentially move that on-screen keyboard in a few different ways. I am going to maybe just do a page break to go down to a blank portion of the document, and I'm going to manually click on the words or the letters that spell today. So clicking on T, clicking on O, and as I start to click, just above my software keyboard, there is an autocomplete. So potentially, I could save a few clicks by going for one of the words up top, and now I have today. And there's a tiny bit of word prediction as well as that's happening. So this is just kind of a brief intro to that on-screen keyboard. But I'm going to maybe look at one other major feature inside of the motor dexterity category. So while I'm here inside of Microsoft Office, so this one unfortunately is not built into the Windows, but it is built into newer versions of Office. Office has a dictate option now that tends to work, at least from what we've observed, a lot better than Windows speech recognition. And the reason I'm not focusing on Windows speech recognition is we have had such mixed results with it that if someone wanted to navigate their computer by voice, they might use a combination of Cortana or more likely the Dragon software to navigate by voice. But at least for Word, just built in the Word now, you have the option for dictate. And I'm going to try that out. So that'll be on the Home tab by default on the very far end of the Home tab inside of a group box. Yeah, the voice group box. And if it's not there, you may have to install it manually for free from the Microsoft website, or potentially you might need a later version of Office. So I'm going to click on Dictate. This is a test of my dictation, and I am hoping that it appears on the screen, period. And so I can probably talk about as fast as I want and have the text start to appear on the screen. And even as I am telling you all this right now, the text is showing up, or should be showing up, period. So I just clicked the dictate off, and that's just built in. It works not too bad with even a web camera in kind of a quiet environment, and works even better if you have a headset. But some users might say, oh, this is all I needed. I don't need all the features of Dragon. I just wanted to dictate a few things. And just kind of the heads up, because this is not a commercial software, it's not as robust, and you can't do as many things with dictate. But I wanted to look a little bit at neurodiversity and then finish off with hearing, just due to time. So neurodiversity, while we're here at Office, we have an option for searching. Well, actually, even before that, I have just a lot of visual clutter on my screen. Maybe I just want to reduce the amount of content on my screen so I can really focus on what's here. So there's a few different things we can do, whether it's going up to the very top of your Office toolbar and trying to collapse your ribbon. So there's an option for ribbon display options. I'm going to left click on that. It's kind of near the X in the far upper right corner. And I can go down to say, I want to just only show the tabs. So that way I don't have all these icons in my way. But I also notice at the very bottom of my screen, my taskbar and notification bar are kind of a mess. There's just like all this visual clutter. So one way I can get rid of that is I can press the Windows key and maybe type out the word, I'll type out the word taskbar. And here I'm at there's a taskbar settings option, and I see a few things, taskbar notification area. And so I'm going to try that notification area by that system tray, or, well, I guess it used to be called the system tray. I'm going to press enter. And I see all these other options, such as automatically hide the taskbar in desktop mode. Well, that would be nice, but when my taskbar shows up, I still have a lot of stuff on it. So as I'm starting to scroll down or tabbing through this list, there's an option that says combine taskbar buttons. By default, that's probably going to be on, and it is on, so that's not my culprit. But if I tab a little bit further, there's an option that says notification area, select which icons appear on the taskbar. And they mean the whole taskbar now. So I'm going to press space on that. And it looks like my taskbar says always show all icons in notification area. So by default, that might be my speakers, that might be my Wi-Fi, my OneDrive syncing, as well as 10 other icons that if I were using JAWS, I might actually want all of those to be available so I can just do insert F11 and kind of go to them. But right now, it's just kind of overloading me as I look at them. So I might have to tab over to always show all icons in notification area and turn that off. And now in the far bottom right corner of my screen, the hope is that most of those icons have been hidden behind this sort of this upwards pointing, the show hidden icons icon. And I could get to those buttons that way if I really wanted to. So maybe one more feature in neurodiversity before we look at the last feature of this webinar is the Immersive Reader or Read Aloud options. So this is available in Word, Outlook, OneNote, Microsoft Edge, hidden in a few different places, but Immersive Reader, I'm just scrolling back to the top of my Word document that I was using earlier, going to the View ribbon, and I could press the Alt key and gradually right arrow to it if I wanted. And then if I tabbed over to this Immersive Reader option, and it'll be inside that immersive group, I can click on that Immersive Reader, and it tries to take my document and represent this in a way that might help reading it. So up at the top of my ribbon, I have this Immersive Reader ribbon and a few options to adjust the column width, whether it's narrow so that my eyes only focus on the center of the screen instead of panning left and right. I have a page color that I could adjust, not too different from the color filters or the high contrast. I have a line focus, so it might help me read just maybe one line at a time, and I can just start the down arrow in order to just focus on that one line and hopefully not start reading the next line without my interaction. I also have, I'm just turning the line focus off. I also have the text spacing where I get a bit more space between the letters. For some users, this helps, and others it may not. But I'm going to click on text spacing, and we have syllables, and that'll just kind of try to space words out as best as it can to chunks that I can pronounce a little bit easier, like synthesizer. So 4-syllable word. I'm clicking on Immersive Reader, and the last but also most important part, I think, of Immersive Reader is the Read Aloud function. So this would be the text-to-speech feature. It's not a replacement for a screen reader. It's just kind of for spot reading, kind of just reading things on the fly. So if I were to click on the very first paragraph, type out, click on Immersive Reader, click Read Aloud. I'm going to pause it shortly after it starts.
Language of the information.
And in this case, it tried to defy me and just read somewhere else. So I might have to manually click at the very top and click on play on this read aloud toolbar that's appearing on the upper right corner.
Windows Narrator language test using the
So we can adjust things such as the settings for speech, just a few options to the right of that play, as well as the voice. And if you're on the web, you could potentially adjust the language as well. So I'm going to close out of this read aloud and maybe look at one last section. If I press Windows, type in the word hearing, I have ease of access hearing settings. And I'm just going in there and I have an option to change the volume on the computer, just software wise, as well as adjust to turn on this mono audio in case there were certain things that I was doing before that favors the mono audio. There's also a show audio alerts visually that might allow you to make the entire screen flash potentially as a way to notify instead of only through sound. But seeing as our time getting close, I'm going to turn it over to questions. And Harris, if I can have you kind of read any questions while I go to the end of the PowerPoint.
Hello, everyone. This is Harris again. Ben, thank you very much for the very comprehensive run-through of all of those features. Can you hear me? We do, again, all of these are captured in the PowerPoint for you to review and go over in more detail. We did have a question from Joe Conway for you, Ben. What do you think of Magnifier versus Zoom Text or Narrator versus JAWS?
Okay, Ben. I said goodbye. I'll see you later.
Oh, sorry. So Magnifier, I feel like while it's like a lot quicker when it starts up compared to Zoom Text, in the end I noticed that the text in Zoom Text tends to be a little bit crispier and a little bit smoother as it starts getting zoomed in, where Magnifier might not quite have that. But now that there's a few pointer settings as well, and also the different color filters, I feel like out of the box, those three features, the magnifier, the pointer, and the color settings, you can do a lot compared to, say, like Zoom Text, which does have some features like automatically switching your color settings and things as you switch applications. So Zoom Text still has things they can do that Office can't, but just out of the box, Windows does pretty well. And then the narrator I do like just because it's just already on the computer. You don't necessarily have to wait for IT folks to install it, and you can hop between computers, turn on narrator at the login screen, and you're just kind of going. A little bit of a learning curve, but and unfortunately not as robust as JAWS. Like if you, and you're also kind of restricted to using Edge for like the best results. But Narrator has come a long ways, but still kind of has its hiccups. Next question, Harris?
I think that was our only question, folks. It's 1:57. We still have 3 minutes. If anyone else did have any other questions, we know it was a lot of material. We would love to talk to you further. If you had any other further questions for us, please feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to talk to you. If you had any specific instances of people you're working with, whether you should go with some of these accessibility settings or perhaps a paid product, we'd be happy to help.
This is Verlin, and I do have a question.
Yes.
What is the keystroke in Narrator for search while you're on a website?
I want to say Windows Insert F. I could potentially look that up, like in that Insert F1. Or I'm sorry, Insert Control F.
Okay, that's the same in JAWS. Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Good question. Any others to throw at us?
Search all.
D.
Search list. Meeting. Exiting narrator.
Okay. So I think we'll leave it at that. Please look out for some additional webinars which we are creating as we speak on Google Suite and more narrow topics as well. Thank you so much for attending.
15105411442 has left the meeting. CMAC has left the meeting. Shockwave has left the meeting. David Nelson has left the meeting. Champion has left the meeting. Dusty Maurice has left the meeting. Kim has left the meeting. Tara has left the meeting. Lee Baldwin has left the meeting. Alice Washington has left the meeting. Alt F4, end meeting or leave meeting.